Hello, everyone, and welcome at the very, very first podcast that we're going to do with David Crow for Ultra Commerce. We're going to talk about mastering e-commerce operations, the power of OMS and PIM. It's a big subject to start with, but I think it's also a very important one for everyone who is in the e-commerce space and specifically in the enterprise e-commerce space. OMS and PIM today, the very first podcast for Ultra Commerce, and we're going to talk with our very own David Crow. David, welcome so much to have this very first exciting podcast with me today. You're, I can say, an industry leader, an industry hero, an industry veteran. Please introduce yourself to us.
Thanks, Jamie. It's great to be here. I'm really thrilled about joining the podcast today. Dave Crow. I've been in the e-commerce space, probably going all the way back to the early 2000s, and specifically around PIM and order management from starting all the way back at Sterling Commerce back in 2006. And so have been in that space both through the Sterling years and the IBM acquisition, as well as with Ultra Commerce and the time with Blue Yonder as well. And so I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about a subject that's really compelling for e-commerce managers and can be a massive difference maker in terms of customer sat, in terms of customer fulfillment excellence, and as well as delivering on the promise that you're making on your e-commerce platform.
Yeah, so that was actually my very first. Before we're gonna dive in super deep, let's first talk about why OMS and PIM matter for e-commerce managers and especially today.
Sure, let's start with OMS. So order management systems are a critical component of this, especially if you're trying to exemplify or deliver on commitments to customers around speed of delivery, around product availability and in time, real time, or same day, next day availability. So that requires you to have not only visibility to what's available in your distribution centers, but also what's available in market closer to proximity to the customer. Because if I'm going to offer in the shopping cart a specific delivery time frame, then I actually have to know that I have inventory in market that can satisfy that commitment. Because, well, it might be easy to say, I can get this to you same day, or I can get this to you next day. The reality is, if you don't physically know that you have product in the space where you can deliver that to, then how do you make that promise? And nothing turns off shoppers more to your site than to make a commitment for same day, next day, or 2-day delivery and then fall down on that promise. Because often what happens is they'll cancel the order before it arrives and buy it from somewhere else, and then they won't come back to your site again. So having that visibility and make an overarching capability to orchestrate orders in real time post sale is a critical component to satisfying customer demand. Well, let's turn that around for a minute on the product information side, right? And so when you think about in today's world of having diversified collections of products, the more complete and robust that product information is going to go a long way to satisfying customer inquiry around what do I have available, what really is it, are there real descriptions tied to it. Everything's around my product reviews and testimonials to use cases. And in the case of complex parts, do I have installation instructions? Do I have complex product documentation and technical specifications that are going to allow the customer to feel confident that this is the product that they need and this is the product that they want and can meet their demands. And all of that information really is going to be stored in the product information management system, not in your product catalog on your e-commerce platform.
Yeah, and I think that talking about these components and e-commerce platforms, I think it's good to tell people what we do at Ultra Commerce. So if I give a quick overview of Ultra Commerce, we are an, let's say, e-commerce platform where we have a lot of very in-depth features. So we have systems and standalone services like OMS and PIM, but also marketplace capabilities, middleware systems, and even very fast front ends, channel management part of that, and many other of these tools. So what makes us very different from the other ones is that not just that we offer this as a whole, but we offer this actually as standalone services and components, where we can now also talk about OMS and PIM as a standalone service that you can introduce into your current system. You can choose to do everything Ultra. You can also choose to say, okay, I really want to dive into this OMS and PIM. We have customers who are running even, Shopify stores or Salesforce or Magento. They're all over the spectrum that are using one or more of our tools. So OMS and PIM in very plain language.
Sure. And the order management system basically becomes the system of record for orders, right? It's not your financial system of record, but it should be the system of record of all of your customer orders across all of your sales channels. That would include e-commerce, like your storefront channels, and those orders that come in that aren't cash and carry from your point of sale should be fed into your OMS, and the offline orders any call center orders. And then it also should be the basis for a customer order inquiries through your call center. Now, it may not be your complete customer service system, but for everything related to orders, it should be the system of record. And why is that the case? Well, the reason for that might be is that from a customer standpoint, they'll want you to recognize them and recognize their value. And how do I do that unless I have a history and the ability to represent that? When Jamie comes onto my website to shop, I can see a history of Jamie's online purchases, but also what she probably took away from the store or the retail system as well, because we want to represent to her that we have all of her history and we recognize the lifetime value of this customer. And OMS is really the system that's going to allow you to do that, to give you the best opportunity to market to this individual customer on a one-to-one basis. On the PIM basis, right? PIM was critical in that most people who are selling online today have more than one online channel that they may be selling through. I may operate my own storefront, but I will also be selling through a third-party marketplace like an Amazon, like an eBay, like an Etsy. I may be doing things on social with Facebook Marketplace and others. And how do I keep all of my product content in sync if I don't have a product information management system where I'm aggregating and defining and creating all those product descriptions and have all of those digital assets, the photos, the videos, the testimonials available, and then be able to syndicate that content from one location out to all of my sell-through channels, right? All of those third-party marketplaces, as well as my e-commerce place, and be able to manage that all from a central repository. Again, similar to the way I'm keeping all of my orders and order history for my customers available in my order management system, I also need to aggregate and centralize all of my product content so I have a single place, single voice of truth about the products that I'm selling that I can avail to all of my sell-through channels.
I think that, you mentioned channels. Not every PIM system has like a channel management. It's something that we do offer because we see that as a very critical point, in your PIM system, especially these days when there's a lot of marketplaces and, places where you want to resell. So, yeah, so as you already mentioned, we have channel management inside, a PIM system or product information management, but it also is very coherent with the order management system because from which channels actually orders are coming in. Uh, can you tell us some, typical pain points when these systems are missing?
Sure. Look, from an order management perspective, that if I'm operating a civil e-commerce business and I won't have a single distribution center, then I may or may not need an order management system, right? Because I'm going to have my orders come into my e-commerce standpoint. They're going to go off to my fulfillment system for execution. Complexity comes in when I have more than one distribution center, right? If I have two or three, or if I have third-party fulfillers, how am I coordinating the fulfillment activities of this and the statuses back to customers when I have multiple fulfillment channels or nodes on my fulfillment strategy? I might have a distribution center in the eastern part of the United States, but I might work with a 3PL in the Midwest and a 3PL in Europe. And so, how am I integrating, coordinating my orders through those third party systems that are going to do fulfillment for me? And it's not just sending them the order, right? It's getting status messages back and enter milestones on what's the status of my order so that I can put that back on my sales channel to give my customer confidence that I'm going to meet a delivery commitment. E-commerce systems aren't really set up to do that, right? I take an order, I send it somewhere, it gets fulfilled, they tell me when it's fulfilled, and I post it to your website that your package is shipped one of one. um, the complexity comes in if I have to send that order to multiple places, or let's say that order has to be split and I have to do fulfillment from multiple locations. Well, what's going to tell the customer that it's multiple packages, right? That it's going to come at multiple shipment points. Most systems and most e-commerce systems fall down because they would take back a symbol from the first fulfillment location that said a package shipped box one of one. How would your e-commerce system mirror that there were multiple boxes, multiple shipments, multiple delivery dates that were coming back without having something that sits in between that platform and those fulfillers that's merging there's that order that might have been decomposed into multiple fulfillment points on a single order that had multiple items. And so that complexity, as soon as you introduce complexity from the fulfillment standpoint, is the point where you absolutely need to have an order management system. Now that's just talking about the fulfillment side. That complexity also comes into play on the inventory side. So how do I know where all of my inventory is located in proximity to where it needs to be fulfilled to the customer to keep track of all of that? And so, e-commerce systems are usually available. It says I have a SKU and I have an inventory bucket. My inventory bucket says this is how many I have on hand. It may have a location, it may not. It may just assume that everything's coming from a centralized place. But the reality is, for this SKU, I could have inventory spread all over the world in tens of or hundreds of different locations. Different nodes could be in retail store places, And how do I aggregate all of that inventory on a location basis so that I know, if Jamie logs in the Netherlands to purchase an item, do I have it in proximity where she could maybe pick it up in an hour or have it delivered in an hour, or it could be shipped same day or next day? How do I know that if I don't have inventory by location that I can relate to where my customers accessing me from in a sales channel? And so again, I think the pull and order management is, as soon as I introduce complexity into my fulfillment and logistics environment, I need to have an order management system to keep track of that complexity, to simplify it for the customer, but also to allow me to make the right kind of promise to the customer that says, this item you want to purchase is available, it's in the market, and you can have it in half an hour, you can have it tomorrow. And I really don't see, if you have complexity in your network and you're just doing this in your commerce footprint, you can make that promise all day, but you can't keep it because you have no way of knowing if you can execute on that.
The same as with PIM, and especially you mentioned like, hey, Jamie's in the Netherlands, which is, if people who do not know, that is true. I'm in Europe, and when I look at PIM systems, this is a very crucial part for especially for in Europe, but all over the world, but especially in Europe, where we have product information that is very different for each country. There might be things like, of course, the easy one, the languages, the prices, the this kind of stuff, but also, for example, energy outlet. It looks different when you're in London, when you're in the Netherlands. It's actually a different product sometimes, or a different cable that has to be shipped with it. So PIM systems are very crucial. OMS the same, but PIM systems also very crucial, when you do European business, cross-border business. But I'm sure, David, you have some examples when it's in the US where you do not have this complexity. But I'm sure there's many challenges there when you don't have a PIM.
Yeah, look, you brought up a great point, and was how do I manage even just the localization that says, do I have it in just English, or do I have to have my product descriptions in multiple languages if I'm serving Europe or Asia Pac? And where am I managing that all centrally from, right? Am I counting on Google Translator to do this for me in real time on my website, which is going to slow down site performance? Or do I want to have all of that content written correctly for localization in the specific language and constructs of those languages in the regions in which I'm going to sell? That is a huge part of it. Again, it's flipping back, and you talked a little bit about syndication and channel management, right? That's also a complexity. Anecdotally was speaking with a potential customer last week who SaaS through 11 different marketplaces, and we don't have a PIM today. And what we talked about was, how do you keep all of your product data in sync? And the person just kind of laughed and said, well, we don't, right? That's one of our big challenges. We literally had a different person who went and created this product on Amazon, and then created it on Walmart, and then created it on Target,
Oh, wow.
and then also on Etsy and Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a different person. So none of the product descriptions match. None of the images are the same. The pricing is also all over the place. And so they have no way to manage, try to coordinate all of that. And so what's interesting was, even though it's the same product, they get different levels of customer reviews and customer satisfaction scores on different marketplaces. And the complaints are generally that the product wasn't as described. And on the other side, it might say, this product was exactly as we expected it. And that comes down to, how was it described on the product? Their big challenge is, how do we coordinate product content around 10,000 plus SKUs across 11 different sales channels, where in the original we created them all separately, and different people created them on their own based on what their opinion was of the product description. And so we've been talking about coordinate that and let us help you be able to not only do this centrally, but then again, with the channel management capabilities, be able to syndicate this out across all of your sell-through channels so that everywhere you sell, your product descriptions are the same.
Well, I think that, you mentioned even reviews there, and I think that's an important part as well of a PIM system, is that the one that we also offer you is that it's not just about, the data you put in, but also the data you can collect from all these different platforms. Because obviously it's very good if you would have, let's say, good reviews on Amazon and good reviews on, for example, in Australia, Iconic. When I have, when there's reviews there, I want to collect them and broadcast them to the other ones as well. So, I can cross a review between them. So, yeah, I think this it's not just about, sending data, but also receiving data about your products there. Very interesting to hear, like, there's a company out there where there is people, and I'm sure there's many, where there's people who putting in just data for all the different platforms. That's insane when you think about it. And sometimes people think it might be a big hurdle to, install a PIM system and get everything up and running. But in the end, this is going to save you so much more time and money, and also inconsistency. Data consistency is one of the most important things out there. And I know people like, real world challenges, the real war stories. So, when we look at that, and I think that, you just mentioned a customer that you talk with, but it goes further when things are challenged in an e-commerce environment. And especially now, when I'm going to say it again, we had one case where there is a customer who's running a lot of sales through Instagram with influencers. And what was happening is that these brands, working with influencers, and these influencers were promoting, I don't know, I would think it was dresses or lipstick, something like that. Or I think it was a dress. They were promoting dropping the dress, and everybody was waiting and happy and started to order. And then it was a lot of overselling because the data didn't update fast enough. The orders, didn't come through fast enough. And what happened is that, they had to disappoint a lot of people. Not only was obviously the brand hurt because, the brand people were complaining that they didn't got their order, but on top of that, it is a brand of the influencer. And very, very vocally online, people were complaining. And literally there were complaints about, now I have to go to my Christmas dinner naked because I don't have a dress, or you ruined my sister's wedding because this was the perfect dress that she wanted, and now I don't have it. It's a two brand. It's the brand itself, but it's also a very vocal one. And you don't want this kind of stuff going around about your brand on social media with popular influencers that your target group is actually following. You don't want to see that. And of course, these influencers then don't want to work with you anymore because they're the ones also who are getting a lot of blame. We talked about data inconsistency, and, but, there's a lot of other things, like, for example, omni-channel complexity, right? So I know you have like an example of online, offline stock mismanagement. Share that with us, David.
With order management, I think complexity comes in. I've never seen an order management implementation that had maybe less than 9 or 10 integrations. When you think about needing to integrate into a warehouse management system, into point of sale retail systems, your accounts receivable system, your general ledger, you might have other integrations into third party shippers and fulfillers, tax calculations, call center systems, or CRMs. And so the level of integrations is very complex, which we can handle with our data orchestration layer as well. But that assumes that there's only one different instance or version of those products. And so complexity again comes into, what does my technical stack look like as relates to my omni-channel environment to keep all of that data synchronized? Where am I pulling inventory signals in from? How many different WMSs do I have across how many different distribution centers and third-party fulfillment partners? Do I have a PIM that's awesome to centralize my product information, but I also probably need to integrate into an ERP, which is going to be my transactional system of record for either producing products or replenishment. I got to integrate in my financial systems. And so the horror stories that I have in the past is all around, gee, you missed this node, or we forgot to build an integration into our third-party logistics agency, which does fulfillment for us in the West Coast of the United States. And I'm missing all of that inventory sync information, all that product availability. And oh my gosh, we had hundreds of orders that came in from Southern California for Christmas, and we didn't have visibility of the inventory. So we just accepted all of them. And now to your point, we're going to fulfill about 50% of those, and half of the customers are going to be disappointed. And so we're going to do that kind of on a first come, first serve basis. They're going to tell those other customers, sorry, you're not getting this item for Christmas when you thought you were, when we took your money and we took your order.
Yeah.
So, the complexity, we can help customers orchestrate through that complexity by simplifying all of those integrations and all those different system touch points, but doing it in a way that gives you consistency and trust and reliability in that, we've got all the sources touched and we've got this all integrated and made it work. I think the biggest challenge, historically, I'm old enough to know when people would say, gee, if I do a great thing for a customer, they're going to tell one or two people, but if I disappoint a customer, they're going to tell 10. Well, that was true before social media. But now if I disappoint a customer, I run the risk of them posting something online, and all of a sudden it's millions of people who see that I disappointed a customer and create that brand trust break, if you will, that I've got to recover from. And so, again, it's one thing to be able to take the order, but having the consistency around fulfillment and delivering on the promise that you're making, that's really, really the core of what's e-commerce and omnichannel success today. And again, having that order management system in there really becomes the bridge that says, if I want to offer a 30-minute delivery or same day delivery or pick up in an hour, then I really have to know that the inventory is actually there, that if I'm going to send somebody to drive to a store that's 3 miles from their house to pick something up in 30 minutes, I better be sure that it's really in the store and I have it to commit, because that customer's not going to be very happy if they just drove across town to pick up something that I told them they could get in 30 minutes and it's not there.
Yeah. So, David, how can we, make sure that if we do this not we, actually the people who are listening to us. And I hope it's going to be a lot of people, and especially in of course the e-commerce management and this kind of people there, operational management. How we're going to make sure, how can we help them that when we do this podcast again in half a year, their war story is not going to be on this podcast. Like,
Your success story will be on this podcast, right? I think for my
that's for sure.
where Ultra Commerce is, we have a track record of delivering and in some cases over delivering for our customers and making sure that we touch the base. But we do have templates and frameworks that allow us to make sure that we've identified all of those integration touch points and all of those hotspots. And also from a change management perspective, what needs to happen physically within the environments in terms of training and education for my staff to execute on the demand. I can tell you countless horror stories where customers decided to do buy online, pick up in store, and they went in and trained people in one part of the store that says, hey, when this item comes in and is received on the dock, let's set it over here for an e-commerce order. But then they forgot to train the people in customer service that said, well, when this customer comes in with this e-commerce order, go back to this location to pick it because that's where it's stored. And unfortunately, what happened in this instance was customers came to the customer service desk. They looked it up on their point of sale system and found we won't sell this in the store, and they refunded the customer's money. Right. So, it's not just about integrations and it's just not about technology, but we also have templates and frameworks around change management and the education that needs to happen around processes so that all of your store associates or your warehouse associates understand the process specific to this order type when it comes in of how to execute it so that we're satisfying customers and not disappointing people.
So how do we start then? People give you a call?
Or yeah, getting started, it's easy, right? You can go to www.ultracommerce.cr and sign up for us to talk to them, or you can reach out to myself or any of our other salespeople listed on the website as well. We're happy to talk to you and understand where you're having problems. We do have folks like myself in our community who have, unfortunately, decades of experience in e-commerce and omnichannel orchestration to helping, even if you're struggling with I'm having a challenge. I know I'm having a challenge in my e-commerce business because it's not growing as I expected. And we have enough experience, and frankly, we are straightforward enough that if we can help you, we'll tell you. But what we want to do is help you solve pain points in your e-commerce journey, and we have tools that are both in a way so that we can sell you what you need to solve the problem without having to rip and replace everything in your stack. Now, we would love for you to rip and replace everything in your stack, and we'd love to be your partner of choice. But we can also help you pinpoint pain points that you're having in your customer's e-commerce journey and help you implement solutions to solve specifically for that pain point.
Yeah, and a cool thing actually, when you go to our website, I think that's pretty funny. So when you go to our website, there is a chat and that pops up and that tells you like, "Hey, can I help you?" And many people think that's a robot, but it's actually not. That's David actively telling you hi on our chat. So when there's someone talking to you and say like, "Hey, you're looking at this, can I help?" It's David.
Please engage with me. If my face and name pops up, it's really me trying to chat with you. So I'm happy to get on and have a conversation with what your challenges might be in your e-commerce or your customer's e-commerce journey or with your e-commerce platform itself.
Yeah, it's not a bot. So I think that's nice to know because we really want to help, and we have these great experienced people here, including Dave yourself, to really dig deep, and we don't mind digging deep with you. We really like to get to the point. We're almost already 25 minutes in. I want to keep this like a 30-minute max because we don't want people to immediately fall asleep on our very first podcast. Very short. OMS, trends and PIM.
Well, look, trends. Let's start with trends in PIM because the one challenge in PIM is many people who are selling third-party product information, and so they might struggle to get what they believe is adequate product information from their partners or their fulfillers. The descriptions might not be complete, or what they get might not be, we'll say, retail digestible, and the kind of thing that your merchandising team wants to put in space to represent the products on your retail website. So one of the big trends we see is this is a great place where generative AI can come into play to help kind of find product content from other avenues and other sources where it's available around these products to help enrich the product data that you have today to make it more robust and complete, right? Almost to the point where, I remember say, hey, just hit publish and send it to your website without digesting it, reviewing it, because you always want your marketing or your merchandising people to have final say on what's out there, but it can simplify the process of finding missing elements of the product information that you might be selling. So that's a great trend we're seeing there. Similarly, on the IRS side, we're finding AI is a great tool to use to help us estimate fulfillment logic and fulfillment time. If I have the availability of product in multiple locations and multiple modes, what's the best, most trustworthy path to fulfill for this customer? What are the what are the sources within reasonable distance of proximity to the customer? I think some of the great solutions we're seeing available today is I forgot my aggregated inventory footprint by location is rather than just saying to Jamie, here's where it's available from. You can pick it up in 30 minutes. Why not offer Jamie the choice that says, here's three options for you to get this. You can have it delivered tomorrow. You can pick it up in an hour, or we can have it at your doorstep in 30 minutes using something like Uber delivery, right? And
Yep.
so allow the customer to choose what fulfillment path is best for them. And those are some of the great, agentic AI things that we're seeing in the market today to help with that as well. We're seeing some things around back office from an administrative standpoint around inventory movement, inventory flow that allows us to see if I've got product that's selling well on the eastern coast of the United States, but I've got a bulk of merchandise that's sitting in a fulfillment center in the West Coast. You can use AI tools to help us automate where that inventory and those inventory transfers are taking place or need to take place because something's selling a little raw in one location and it's not selling at all in another. So I can, automatically shift that inventory around where it makes sense and is cost effective to drive more sales. We're seeing a lot of that from an administrative standpoint as well, and those are all great tools and great concepts to help improve our ability to fulfill customers.
I think that, you mentioned AI, and that is obviously the promise of the future, but it's also very funny that I sometimes see, already people using that. And especially it was actually an example of PIM and channel management. As you say, always check, do not just push the publish button. I actually saw an ad on Amazon where the title of the product was, okay, I know what you mean. Here is the product description with XYZ. And that was super funny because I just published with exactly that very first text of chat in there. So very interesting product to see. Um,
I do follow those trends as well. It's interesting if you're starting to see more and more things published around accuracy from some of those sites. And so I won't throw any tools under the bus, but I am seeing statistics that are somewhere between 30 and 45% level of accuracy in the information that comes back. I've also seen one personally have experience where you might ask an AI bot the same question three times and you get three completely different answers, which is also indicative of the level of consistency of what it's finding first or second in its model. And so I find that interesting. It's a case where you always want to verify and double check and make sure that you're comfortable with the response that you're getting before you publish it out to your customer base.
And I think, to wrap it up, a PIM system is what helps with that. Because before, you can build in this level, and we have that in our system, build in this level of check in there, like, hey, check before you send something or before you publish. So, you can put in a lot of data, but if you put crap in, crap might come out. So you need to have that system there. And PIM systems actually really help with that, of getting that accuracy out there, checking that one. And really makes you stand out of your competitors when you have that clear descriptions, clear data there. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one last question. What is your number one piece advice to a commerce manager?
I think my number one piece of advice to a commerce manager would probably be look at your growth statistics and your growth trajectory and think about, where the company was right now in your e-commerce journey and how you're satisfying customer demand. But to stop and think about what's next, right? Are we achieving mid to high double digit growth on a year-over-year basis? And if we're not, then, let's have a conversation around your go-to-market strategy and how we can help you implement several different strategies that can improve your conversion rates, improve your SEO scores, but also help you expand your assortment without taking on a lot of inventory risk. But likewise, if you're starting to fall down on your execution and fulfillment and you're starting to see challenges around customer success or customer support, then let's have a conversation around how do we help you better understand where you might have gaps in your data layer around orchestration and execution that we can help you solve as well. It could be a PIM problem, it could be an OMS problem, but it could also be that you just have latency in your data and your data orchestration that we can help you resolve with getting that data to be more real time. And so, I guess the one piece of advice I give to an e-commerce manager is if you're watching this podcast, if you're having challenges with the way your platform executes today and your growth strategy, reach out to Ultra Commerce because we want to help you solve that problem. And we don't have to be everything to you in your environment, but we do have the capabilities and the tools that can help you solve unique and specific challenges in advanced ways.
Yeah, and I think that for the people who are listening and not seeing this, there is another advantage of getting, on a call with David, and that is to see his amazing background. Is that those who do not know in David's background, and tune in to the video if you want to see it. But in David's background, there's about 40 50, I don't know how many, close to 50 guitars there. And not just, very cool, they look amazing, but there's also some very special e-commerce guitars there, because another hero in the e-commerce world, Matt Poland, is actually the one who has been making them.
Yamato Daily made them for me. So Matt Bear, very
Sorry, the wrong Matt.
in London has helped me. He's built a couple very amazing custom guitars for me.
Yeah, really, really cool. I'm pretty sure that's something to talk about in the next podcast. I would like to thank everyone to listen to this very first Ultra Commerce podcast, the ones who've been watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback, please drop us as well. If you want to, be a guest on our show, if you want to, hear some specific topics, or just want to have a chat with either one of us or any one other person of our team, please let us know. Drop us a follow. There's much more content to come. It's going to be very cross-Atlantic, between the US, between Europe, between Australia, between APAC regions, whatever people we want to get in. We want to hear all stories, not just stories from the commercial people, but really stories from developers as well, from people who are implementing it and people who are using real-world e-commerce. There's too much AI stuff running around at the moment in terms of content. We need to get real stories out. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Drop us a follow, drop us a like, and thank you, David.
Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be on.